Hello, and welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And excuse me for starting off immediately laughing, but for those of you watching on YouTube, probably saw my cat's tail. He has jumped up in front of the microphone and knocked it over 3 times. I've started this episode 3 times now. Anyway, I'm very excited for another great guest episode this week. I had 2 guests, count them 1 and 2 guests, on to talk about this beautiful facility in California called the Caring House. I'm going to let them do it more justice than I will by explaining what Caring House is and the services they provide. And you'll know by about 5 minutes in my utter jealousy and how I wish I could work at an amazing place like the Caring House. I wish I could have a place like that here in Central Ohio. Pipe dreams, maybe one day down the road. But before we get into that, I wanted to give a shout out to a new Patreon patron, Grace. Thank you so much for being a patron. If you would like to be amazing and have your name set on my show as well, and you want to support this show, please reach out to me at patreon.com/Nikki the Death Doula. For as little as $1 a month, you can help. For more, you get a little bit more bonus content. You get grief affirmations, early access to the podcast. I give check-ins too. All of the money I receive through Patreon goes to a special budget so that I can provide pro bono work within the community. So every month I give a little talk back to my patrons and let them know what their funds have been paying for, what I've been doing with my time. So happy to continue doing that. But if you want to support me in this show, please do so over there. And another quick, exciting announcement before we get in. I talked about this last week at my podcast, but I am launching a membership-based grief support community. Online, we will have grief circles once a month. I'm going to have special guests and speakers for great either workshops or talkbacks or just great groups and listening circles with some really dynamic guests that I have. I've already been reaching out to people to gauge their interest in having them on. So if you are interested in hearing from some amazing people, and outside of both of those, I will have a 24/7 Slack channel where you can communicate with other listeners of this podcast, other people who might be experiencing grief, get support, talk to each other, love on one another, and have a great space that is safe and sacred for your feelings of loss. So that is it. You can go to nikkithedeathdoula.com to get more information on that. If you go to the tab up in the corner that says podcast, there's tons of information there on this show, on that group, all of the things. And without further ado, you are not here to listen to me blather on and on about all of that. You are here to listen to my amazing conversation with David and Anne from the Caring House. All right. Hello, listeners. Thank you so much for tuning into another amazing episode of Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula. I am very excited for my episode today. As you can see, if you're watching this, I've got several names on the screen today. I've got quite a few guests today from a hospice in California, and I will not do it justice. So I'm going to let either David or Anne, if one of you want to introduce yourself briefly and tell us a little bit about Caring House.
I'll start and then throw it over to you, Anne. I'm Dave Zartman. I'm the executive director of Caring House. We were founded by Ed and Patty Long, who were local Torrance, California elder law attorneys who saw a need for a nonprofit hospice care residence, and they went to great lengths and an amazing amount of effort to get this off the ground. The doors opened exactly 10 years ago in 2016, so we just had our 10-year operations anniversary and have served well over 800 residents in that amount of time.
I love that.
Yeah. So, and then Anne, whatever you want to add.
Sure. Caring House is an actual home. It's a residence with a kitchen and a family room and a beautiful garden that's taken care of by many people. And for me, when I walk in, the first time I walked into the house, I don't know, maybe there were some decorations or something, but I thought, wow, this feels like my grandmother's house. Not in a dated way, but I mean in just the feeling you get when you walk into your grandmother's house. There's like a safety and a comfort. Just how the house smells, like always home cooked food or cookies or whatever happening in the kitchen. And that's how we want our residents and their families to use the house, is really as their own home. It's very much a family that works there, from the staff to all the caretakers, administrative support, even the volunteers who are so intricately woven into what we do. It's definitely, a family there. So
Yeah.
it's very different in that
Hmm.
way. And I think that both the residents and their families also feel that. And so yeah, you open the doors into grace
Oh,
is how I
oh,
feel
I love
it.
that. I love
Um,
that.
yeah, it's a really special place. So I'm
Yeah.
glad I'm so lucky to be a part of it, and
Mhm.
everyone that is involved. It's a heart mission. It's not work. It's something that
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I
I mean,
love that.
I'll give you a perfect example that, and Anne is so right. Just yesterday, I got this little note written on a little piece of paper, this little rectangular piece that said, "You only took care of my husband for 2 days, but I'll never forget how beautiful it was and how great the caregivers were."
Oh,
And that was someone who'd been there well over 2 years ago
okay.
and had sent that note, and they put a little gift in there as well, a little donation, but just that thought, just 2 days, made
Wow.
that impression. So
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Yeah.
Something I didn't, when I got into death care, I was new to it. I didn't know or understand that it's a 24/7 job. It happens around the clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Unfortunately, death is a little rude that way. He doesn't put it on your calendar.
3 a.m.
Yep.
Um,
Uh-huh.
so, having that kind of tender, loving care all day long for our
Mhm.
residents, it's really, takes the burden off the families. And
Yeah.
that's essentially what we're there to do.
Yeah.
So they just get to spend that time with their loved one.
Mhm.
And as you know, Nikki, there's 1,000 sort of complicated, horrible decisions to be made
Yep.
during that process, right? And they're
Yeah.
confusing, and you don't know what to do. And at Caring House, you have people there, obviously guiding you
Yeah.
through all that. So, and then there's good times there too. I
Hmm.
was working with a woman once who she was originally from France, and when she would wake up in the morning, it was my job to get her breakfast. And one day I said, "What would you like for breakfast?" And she said, "I'll take a tart tatin and champagne." Coming right
Okay.
up. So we definitely, whatever people want, they get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's their time to
I
be
hope so.
taken care of in that way. So
Yeah.
there's also some joyful moments to be
Yeah.
had
And I love the idea of a hospice house,
there.
because I face this a lot with people I work with here. We don't really have many, if any, in Ohio. We have some
Mhm.
beautiful respite centers that are solely for hospice. And then most hospices have arrangements with nursing facilities, assisted living, independent living facilities where people can go if they can't be at home for whatever reason. But overall, we don't really have like a home, a house, a
Mhm.
place just for hospice for anything longer than respite care. And I think it's a beautiful option because I know I've dealt with people who either cannot or do not want to die at home, and they
Mhm.
have no real choice other than going to a skilled nursing facility,
Mhm.
maybe an independent living facility, but even then, it's a little trickier because they might not have the level of care that person would need. So
Right.
I love the idea of having a home. So where did Caring House come from? Who came up with this beautiful home and this idea to start this?
Yeah, it was Ed and Patty Long, and some community people who helped them, but it was their idea. Ed, as I mentioned, he's an attorney. He's retired now. He lives up in Oregon, but he still stays in contact with the house. But he did do elder law, and he created another group to help elderly people, kind of navigate end of life care and that sort of thing. But he just realized one day that, this is a niche that is not being filled in general.
Yeah.
Certainly not in Torrance and what we call the South Bay Area or Southern California. When he started work on this, he realized that if it got off the ground, that Caring House would be the first and the only nonprofit hospice care residence, because we're a
Hmm.
hospice care residence. We're not a hospice agency.
Right.
Okay. We're a residence. And so Then the planning began. They found the house. They realized that it had innumerable updates to do to get it up to code. We're an RCFE, so residential care facility for the elderly, non-medical.
Okay.
So we knew that there were certain things as a lawyer that really helped to know that there's certain things that we could or couldn't do or would be fiscally difficult to do. But we did have to, bring the house up to code, right? We have to put in
Yeah.
the water sprinkler systems and all this sort of thing.
Hmm.
And so it took many years to get the funds for that and to locate the house and kind of just, and I to this day, we have whole, cabinets full of all the legal side and that sort of thing. But we got off the ground. And then the second thing that he created that was most important was, and this is really key for Carrying House, is that no one is turned away based on inability to pay. And so that's incredible because as we know, as you were just saying a moment ago, Nikki,
Yeah.
that the cost for any kind of board and care or a SNF or just, a facility, and
Hmm.
certainly in Southern California, is extremely high,
I don't
as you
even want
may
to
imagine,
imagine.
right? It just is. And so
Yeah.
the idea was that no one's going to be turned away. Now, we do rely, therefore, heavily on, grants and donations and this sort
Sure.
of thing because that takes a lot of money. But that's the key is that if someone comes in and they can't pay or they can only pay a tiny amount, we're not going to say no to them,
Hmm.
right? And so we have had innumerable people who have come in who are indigent. We've had homeless people and this sort of thing who have come in and we'll give them a bed and they can pass away here. I'll kind of close this out before I hand it to Anne, which is, our mission statement is peace at the end of life for all persons. And so that
Hmm.
goes out saying that it's regardless of gender, of sex, of
Yeah.
nationality, of race, everything else.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, you can come and regardless of ability to pay. So that's one thing that he really set in stone and we love.
Yeah.
David, we're still the only like non-medical hospice residents in LA County, right?
Yes, 100%. Yep.
Oh,
Nonprofit,
okay.
non-medical. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're starting to see, I've seen just through kind of my death community networks, I've seen some of this starting to happen a bit. A new one in North Carolina. Obviously, there's the Omega Home Network, Indianapolis, right?
Uh, based out of,
Our can
yeah.
Midwest.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, we're starting to see it, but this
Yeah.
idea of the residents, I think is like you pointed out, Nikki, it's really
Hmm.
I've in my studies on death care, back in the 1800s and 1900s, I'm sure before then, people died in the home,
Hmm.
but it was really you know, a matter of community care,
Yeah.
right? The house,
Yep.
the front door was open and the community would really come in and support
Hmm.
a passing away of someone. It wasn't just left to an individual, a spouse or a child.
Right.
And so for me, I see that as so essential because
Yeah.
it's coming for all of us.
Hmm. Spoiler
Why,
alert, everybody. Guess what?
right? Why wouldn't we want to
Yeah.
Right.
support this in the right way for everyone?
Yeah.
And it's my like dream someday that there's a house like this in every zip code and it's a
Yes.
taxpayer funded situation,
Hmm.
because there's just too many people passing in
Yeah.
situations where their life is not being honored,
Right.
right?
Oh,
And
I cannot agree with you more. If I had all the money in the world, I would start one here.
I know
Um,
I've worked with other death doulas who that's their like ultimate dream is to also.
wow.
I mean, the hard part of our job is the relentless fundraising. It's
Right. Oh
and,
yeah.
and
I'm in the
people
non,
want to, yeah,
yeah,
people want to fund the beginning of life. They don't want to fund the end of it.
right. Yeah, I work with I volunteer and work with several other nonprofits. So I've been doing that my whole life. I've always been in the nonprofit sector in one way or another. And yeah, that's all you do is fundraising. And it
Mhm.
is,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
fun. It's a lot of
Yeah.
work, but it's necessary to keep it running.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's interesting because as David was saying, so much of I mean, we do big fundraisers every year, and to keep our doors open, it is
yeah.
the money from the community,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
it is interesting. I like to really think about Caring House as like community care for death
Hmm.
because, you know, and that's my hope for one day where we get to as a
Hmm.
society.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Yeah.
really have. I talk about that a lot on this show and in other places too, how we started in small communities around the
Mhm.
world, and now we don't do that as much anymore. We might have our communities, certain small towns or churches might have their own community, but overall, like we tend to scatter.
Mm.
The world's a bigger place now and we know of it, so we
It
Right.
leave
is, and
home.
we're a much more individualistic
Hmm.
society than we've ever
Yeah.
been. We're much
Mhm.
further away from people knowing about death. Like if
Hmm.
in the early 1900s, someone was dying in your home, you saw it,
Yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
Now it's
Everybody
like
did.
nobody sees it and everything's
Mhm.
about staying alive forever. And
Yeah.
you don't have to look at death anymore. You don't have
Yeah.
to be around it. And
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
no one's educated on it.
Right.
So it's terrifying and it's
Hmm.
isolating, and this is not cool.
Right. Which is where my podcast comes in. So
Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what got each of you involved in this? Like what path led is this like a type of work you've always done, or yeah, tell me a little bit of how you got to Caring House.
I mean, for me, I had spent the 18 years before Carrying House. I'd started my own media company and kind of grew it from seed to scale. It became the largest global publication and content for Toyota.
Oh.
Um, just saw this niche and decided to run with it, and it was fantastic. I loved it. It let me live all over the world, and I did, and all that. But at a certain point, it wasn't as it just wasn't connecting with me anymore. That's sort of a younger person's the life, the world is fun and meant to be explored. And I wanted to have a little more connection, a little more community facing
Yeah.
connection. So I decided to go back to school and I got an MBA and I decided to use those entrepreneur skills in the nonprofit realm because I knew that I could apply some of those entrepreneurial skill sets
Hmm.
because believe me, if you're a solopreneur, bootstrapper, you're making sure you're raising money. You know what I mean? You're thinking about 360-degree ways of reaching people and you got to be able to talk to
Oh
people and all
yeah.
that. And I knew I wanted to get into it. Locally in some form that was community facing. So
Yeah.
when Caring House came up, to kind of get to the deeper part of your question, which was death and dying and hospice care, I had never really thought about that. I was
Mm,
always more environmentally minded and thinking about
okay.
that kind of thing. And then I kind of walked in the door and I met the people and the caregivers, and like Anne was saying, like that opening the door to grace. I'm like, whoa. Even though to use a much overused word, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Hmm.
I still knew enough to like, wow, this is important. This is incredible. I mean, I had one or two quick interactions with people and seeing the walls with the notes on them of thank you and photos of people. It's like, wow. And I just went in that room and said, I want to work here. I want to take what I've known and see what I can do to help, improve this world, this realm. And that's kind of where I started. And I've never looked back. And I get a lot of personal satisfaction and joy out of it.
Yeah.
And I'll close just by saying also that, like I mentioned, it helped me also where, about a month ago, I held my father's hand when he breathed literally his last breath,
Mm,
right? Like Anne was saying, people are afraid to be there. People don't want to be there.
right.
I was able to be that family in the room. There are other family members there. And so in a weird way, it's some sort of kismet. And
Yeah.
it's very important. It's very important what we do. So that's how I
Yeah.
got into it. And I love looking forward. Yeah.
It's interesting, and you had mentioned to me before we started recording that you had lost your parents recently,
Mhm.
and my listeners know my mom just died
Oh,
at the end of November.
yeah.
Hers was a
Yeah.
sudden loss, but I was at least there for her last breaths too. So
Oh, wow.
I got to hold her
Hmm.
hand through the my dad and my husband were there as well. So
Oh, yeah.
it's it's a it's an honor to be able to be present for that, and especially
Hmm.
for me to have that in my brain. I just harken back to, she was with me when I came into the world, so I was happy I could be with her as she
Yes.
left the world. So
That's
it was just a
beautiful.
beautiful little circle. So
Absolutely beautiful.
yeah.
Yep. 100%. Couldn't agree
That's so
more. Sorry for
important.
your loss too, by the way.
Yeah,
But
and you as well,
yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
And gentle to that, we had a woman at the Caring House um, who was passing away, and it was quite a long process. And towards the end, we had called in her son who flew in
Hmm.
from, I don't know, somewhere, and he spent 2 or 3 days bedside, and she was not really conscious at this point. And he came out of the room and he goes, "She's not going to go until I leave."
Mm. Yep.
And he left. He said his goodbyes and he left the house and he got
Yeah.
on the plane and within a day she passed.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I fully believe he got that message and
Yep.
she didn't want her son to see her.
I see that a lot. And
So
yeah.
it's so interesting, like
Hmm. I see
how,
that a lot, and especially children who are watching their parents die. They're almost offended that they are with them 24/7, and the minute they get up to leave, their parent dies. And it's
yeah.
like, no, they're sparing you from that. That's not, they
Yeah.
didn't do that to be mean.
Mm.
That was their gift in a way. So
Yeah.
It's interesting thought. Yeah. Hmm.
anyway, so Anne,
Interesting.
how did
Yeah.
you get into this line of work?
Yes, similar to you during COVID. I was like a high performing advertising capitalist, blah,
Guru.
selling stupid Nike shoes and Coca-Cola, horrible
Okay.
things, horrible things in the world. Yeah, it was a fun career, but
Yeah.
towards the end, I was like, I could care
Yeah.
less. And COVID happened, so I resigned from my job because they were going to do layoffs. So I was like, I'll
Right.
just go. And
Volunteers tribute. Just
yeah, I had a 3-year-old, so she was out of preschool, and so we were home getting through that. And I like everyone else stuck inside my house and went crazy, and um, I felt the so much the collective grief
Mhm.
and fear that was going on,
Yeah.
and I had no way to process it. So I
Mm.
had a dark night of the soul. I went, had the insomnia, all the horrible things like
Yeah.
psychological breakdown. I'm alone at home with a 3-year-old. It was not a good time.
Ah,
Um, and during this time, I have some really weird stories about this, but that's for
okay.
another podcast. My She wasn't my biological grandmother, but my grandmother, she passed, and I it how she went and where she was and who was with her and all this stuff. I just wish I could have been there. It was really awful not to be by her side. And then the funeral happened, and only some people could go. And I'm watching
Mhm.
it on Zoom, and this woman that meant so much to me, and her life was so damn important and impactful. I mean, she was like an angel walking the earth. She
Oh,
was, she had a garden and grew food for all the homeless people in her town.
oh,
She
wow.
worked, she worked full time at the community center to feed and clothe and house people for free. Like
Mhm.
that's what she did with her retirement. She was just this wonderful, amazing woman. And now she has this like Zoom funeral with 5 people there and I can't go. And what? Like, and as a family, we can't
Yeah.
come together. And I was just so like upset about this whole thing, like big time.
Yeah.
I think also sort of being stuck in my house, I learned this that the opposite of despair is action.
Hmm.
And so when we had a recent tragedy of the California fires, I just got busy. I was
Right.
housing people, I was running around doing everything I could. And that's how
Mhm.
I got through that. And that's how I learned I have to behave in these situations. So
Mhm.
um, during after COVID sort of ended, a couple random people twice in 1 month said that I should become a death doula. And I was like, what is that? Like, and then that's also a weird random thing that 2 people tell you in 1 month. Death
Yeah.
doula. Okay. And then I went online and I death doula Los Angeles and I found Alua Arthur, who I was
Oh,
like
oh, oh, hello.
completely captivated by, watched her TED Talk, was like, sign up, sign up, sign up, like no
She is
question.
so amazing.
She's beyond fabulous. And so I
Mhm.
did her course, which was wonderful and healing in itself. And
Yep.
I mean, to even just be online every day with like 20 beautiful humans that want to do that work was
Mhm.
healing. And yeah, and so then I had to do my practical hours and found
Yeah.
Caring House and just I've I never left. I can't leave.
Yeah.
It's a home away from home for me, and it's also been extremely healing for me
Hmm.
to do this kind of work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just you leave the house and you call your
Mhm.
mom and tell her you love her, right? And you appreciate the
Yep.
sunrise, and you start
Yeah.
to notice the details, I think the generosity of spirit that you're around in that house just
Hmm.
follows you outside the doors. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, I'm
Absolutely.
grateful to be
Oh,
a part.
yeah. It really being a death doula really is a calling. I I can't imagine anybody being like, I know how I'm going to make bank this year.
What's your COVID story? Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I feel like a lot of us death doulas, like it was COVID that kind of pushed us there. And not just because we were bored, but like I had a very similar story. I needed to do something that had meaning. So
Yeah.
I took my death doula training and I was like, oh my God, why have I not been doing this my whole life? Because
Mm,
I felt called to do it. I've never felt uncomfortable around death and dying. I've been around it before, and it was so natural. And then when I finished the training, I'm like, I think I want to like do this. And I started telling people like I'm going to be a death doula, and not one person was like, "What?" Everybody's like, "Oh yeah."
Makes
huh,
sense. Yeah.
Made
yeah.
sense to everybody but me until that moment, I
Hmm,
guess.
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite part of Caring House and getting to be there every day?
Well, I guess I'll say for me is, um, I think that you see the healing you bring to families more
Okay.
than anything. So it's like, I think as a death doula, you're as focused as much on the person dying and the people that are being left behind.
Okay.
And um, I think because our residents are so beautifully cared for
Hmm.
and so happy that they're not in a hospital, or so
Yeah.
happy that their spouse is not having to change them and feed them and be with them every second or make crazy
Right.
decisions for them. Um, you kind of see the peace that brings to the family.
Yeah.
And I've seen some beautiful deaths there.
Sure.
Beautiful.
Sure.
Where a family, 18 people are in a room around a bed, and grandma takes her last breath. No one even notices because they're all telling jokes,
Right.
you know? And it's, I think seeing what's left behind and the peace that it brings to the family members,
Yeah.
and them knowing what it can look like now.
Yeah.
And I don't sugarcoat it. Death is sucks.
It does.
It sucks.
Hmm.
It's not that cool. But there are moments and opportunities
Hmm.
where really beautiful things can happen. And I
Yeah.
think we create the space for that a lot of times. We had a woman who her mother was dying. Yeah. And she was sitting in the living room and she was just sobbing in a chair, and I kind of went and sat with her and asked if she wanted to talk, and she's like, "Oh, I'm not crying about my mom." And I said, "Oh, okay. What's wrong?" And she's like, My father died 6 months ago in a skilled nursing facility,
Mm,
and I
Oh,
feel so terrible that he couldn't have this experience that my mom's having here."
yeah.
yeah.
And so she was sobbing of regret. And
Yeah.
regret is a huge part of grief.
Oh, yeah.
And that was just wow. We need to be here and be doing this because it's bringing not only peace to the dying, but peace to those that have to walk out into the world and continue their lives. And so that to me is like kind of when you see that you've delivered that to people,
Yeah.
because it can go the other way.
Yeah.
And that makes me
Hmm.
I just kind of like my own healing, right? Because I didn't have peace with my
Yeah.
grandmother and how that all went down. So seeing that is a big, big,
Yeah.
big gratifying experience.
Yeah, and I appreciate you mentioning the families too, because that's a big part of what I do is I obviously I'm there for the dying and to make sure that their end of life experience is as well as that it can be, but I'm there for the family as well. And I can see and recognize that they're going to still be there and they're going to carry that grief with them. And
Right.
so I want the experience to be smooth for everybody so that there's no lingering regret or trauma or whatever around how that end of life experience goes.
Yes.
Yeah. So, David, what about you? What's your favorite part of being there?
There's a couple. The first one is when I come in the morning. The
Okay.
first thing I do is I walk in the door, and in our house, to the left is the family room and the kitchen and such, and then the hallway is straight ahead.
Hmm.
The first thing I always do in the morning is I walk down the hallway and I greet, if they're available, and they usually are, but greet one or two of the caregivers, see how they're doing, maybe see how their night went, do they need anything. Then I go room to room and just check in with the people who are there,
Hmm.
and if they're lucid and
Yeah,
awake and that sort of thing.
sure.
Um, I love that. I check in, and that means a lot to me. How are you doing? Is there anything I can get for you? That sort of thing. Which I'm not trying to overspeak the caregiver. It's just like I'm also here because often I'm the one they call in if there's like a problem with the TVs or things like that. But
Yeah.
I'm connecting with them, and that's really great. That means a lot to me because I'm letting them know they're not alone.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Um,
It's a good day if you can make a dying person laugh.
that's right. Yeah, that's
Yes.
exactly
We
right.
do
I mean,
tend to have a lot of laughs in our house. It's
yeah. There's music sometimes. There was a gentleman, he was 104. He was a World War II veteran, he was a war hero, was a Japanese American, what they call Nisei. So he fought with the Americans,
Yeah.
and all that, was retired as a colonel. But he would lay in bed and play his harmonica,
Oh,
right?
wow.
This guy and smile. And I remember taking, with his permission, I took videos of him, and his family
Hmm.
loved it. But that's the one thing I like is that initial connection. And
Hmm.
then the second part is that throughout the day, of course, generally speaking, every day, um, anywhere from one to like Ann said, 18. But any number of people, family members are in the house.
Yeah.
They're in the living room, they're out in the garden, they're getting a cookie, they're making coffee. And just to come out and check in with them. And I've had some great, amazing talks in that same kitchen or in
Hmm.
that living room. People who are tearful, people who are happy, people who are telling stories. And I definitely do not do a lot of talking at those times.
Yeah.
They're just as an ear and listening and saying the minimum. And that is another favorite part.
Mm.
Um, there's a saying, it's a Japanese saying, which essentially is life is heavy, but death is lighter than a feather.
Oh,
And that's
wow.
always moved me a bit because that's like Anne, we're all saying this, death should be, even if it sucks, it's something that doesn't have to be, I don't know, it just doesn't have to be heavy. It can be light as a feather. It can be
Yeah.
something that can happen, you
Yeah.
know?
I
Um,
like that. I
That's what
like
we're
that.
trying to do. Yeah, I'll in a moment when I'm not talking, I'll get the exact quote up on the computer, but death is lighter than a feather. And
Mm.
that's what I want. And that's if we can
Yeah.
achieve that, that's a favorite thing for me, where the family is there, the
Hmm.
person is at peace,
Hmm.
whatever peace means. Maybe it's the joking, maybe it's silence, it could be prayer, it could be singing. We've had all kinds of things, but as long as it's light,
Hmm.
then I love that. And
Oh,
that's kind of what I hope for every day. Yeah.
I think like identity is
I'll look
acknowledging
that up.
identity is so important at end of life.
hmm.
And so I personally love getting to know the stories of people who
Hmm.
are there. And that's kind of one of my favorite
Yeah.
aspects of being
That's
there.
definitely my favorite part of being a death doula. I love hearing
Yeah.
people's
The
stories.
Mhm.
stories. And then like, I mean, this is silly, but there was a man who was he kind of had the fun dementia going on, and
Okay.
he was he had worked in Roswell, New Mexico
With the aliens.
for 30
Really?
years.
Hmm.
Okay.
I was like, this is definitely my opportunity to find out what's been going on in Roswell. And so every morning I'd feed him his eggs and I'd be like, so tell me a little bit about what you used to do. And I was like, are they out there? And he would repeat this oath of like, I'm not allowed to say on the US, based on the US government that I did like, and I was like,
Oh,
just
oh,
tell
Come
me, like,
on, just tell me.
That was funny. And then
Oh my gosh.
we had another resident, lovely, lovely man who had spent 40 years as a psychotherapist.
Oh,
And
Hmm.
he ended up like a week before he died, he ended up becoming my therapist and giving me
Oh,
marital advice and try this at home and do this with your husband and see how he reacts to this. And I mean, he was like,
wow.
and I could tell he wanted to, right? I could
Hmm.
mhm.
tell he wanted to still, do what he was good at to his last
Yeah.
days. And that
Yeah.
was, you know, helping people still feel like who they are in the
Yeah.
end,
That probably helped him pass too a little bit,
if they
feeling
have the
right.
capacity to do
Hmm.
that, I
Yeah,
think um that's just it becomes really special,
yeah,
those
Yeah.
moments,
yeah.
I think for
What
Mhm.
about
everybody.
you, Nikki? Like, what's your favorite memory or moment? Like, what keeps you going?
It's honestly the family members that reach out
Hmm.
to me after. I always tell them I'm here as long as you need me. I'm happy to leave whenever you're done with me, but I
Hmm.
will check in on you. But I've received cards in the mail from family members like long after their person has died, just thanking me for having a presence and making it such a smooth experience. Um, just that personal satisfaction. And I don't know,
Hmm.
I just knowing that someone had a better end of life experience and the family could be
Yeah.
together and they weren't as scared. I just
Hmm.
worked with somebody very recently whose mother was dying, and they were very unnerved by the active dying process. And just throughout her hospice stay, this family member was constantly trying to either take her to a doctor or call the hospital. And I'm like, this isn't what your mom wanted. We can't do that. And it was a struggle because you we want to fix things. And just being able to sit next to her and hold her hands and say, I know this is hard. We just have to sit through this part. And this is what your mom wanted, and she's not suffering. She's okay. And just being able to reassure her, and
Hmm.
having her look at me and finally thank me, and thank you for talking me out of that. I know this would have been traumatic if I took her to a hospital. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you for asking.
Yeah.
So one final question before I have a little tradition at the end of my episode that we'll get to that in a moment, but I want to ask one more final question. If you could shout out anything to the world right now to demystify or break a myth about hospice in general, what is that one message you could just shout to the whole world that everybody would hear? What would that be?
It's not dark and scary. It's bright and light. Something like that.
I
Something along
love it.
those lines. I just feel like, hospice must be this weird place where people are just shunted aside to
Mhm.
die.
Yeah.
No. That's what I would shout out. A hospice is light and bright, I mean, it's not
Yeah.
happy, but it's not that. That's what I would shout.
Right.
Hmm.
Thank
Yeah.
you. What
Hmm.
about you, Anne?
I think there's just opportunity
Hmm.
for some of the best memories of life to happen during that phase. And it's not, it doesn't just have to be an ending. It can
Yeah.
be, something that lasts forever. And it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you
Nice.
guys.
Nice.
All right. So, as I said, I have a little tradition at the end of my episodes
Mm,
where I'm going to pull a random card from the death deck.
Get
I
that.
will read the question aloud, and you will each have an opportunity to answer it, and then I will answer it as well. Fair's fair. So, let's see what
okay.
we have. All right. This one's called Lucky You. You get to relive one day in your life before you die. Which day would that be?
Oh my God.
Hate that question. I can't pick just one, but think about it. I know that's a hard one.
I mean, there's true answers like in a way I'd love to like relive my wedding day. That was a lovely day, the
Mhm.
day my kids were born, right? It's all very true. I'm sure there's like some just fun personal stuff where I don't know, rock climbed an amazing rock wall or something,
Yeah.
but boy, that's a good one. And help me out here. What would you do?
Oh, mine's easy. I know.
What
Okay.
would
And
it
Well, what's
be?
it's
yours?
like boring. It's super boring.
Yeah.
I just was on a hike one day by myself in my favorite place, and the weather was perfect, and just this like insane, sublime happiness came over
Mhm.
me, and I was running down a sand dune and dancing on a beach, and I was the only person in this whole place, minus like there was a little fox nearby or something. It was just like I don't know, I have such a vivid memory of that
Nice. That's
day.
nice.
Awesome. I
All
like
right.
it.
Mm.
Okay.
And then Nikki, do you answer it too?
I do. I have to answer it
Okay.
too. And I've pulled this question before and I've had to answer this
Yeah.
before. And I have like two separate answers. One of my very similar experience to Anne. My husband and I hiked the Long Trail of Vermont, and that whole experience was just utterly life-changing for me. And any day of that, well, there were a couple days I wouldn't want to relive. It was there were parts of it that were awful, but there were parts of it that were so amazing. There was one night on we had to climb all the way up Mount Bromley, and we got to watch the sunset, and you could literally see to New Hampshire. It was just amazing. But quite honestly, if I really had to pick something, I would rather pick something a little more mundane, like an afternoon that I got to spend with my whole family. Just someday we all had dinner together and hung out and played stupid games.
Yeah, there you go. For
So,
sure.
yeah.
Which, by the way, that death deck, Lisa Paul, who helped
Yep.
co-create that,
I've
she's
met her.
local to
She's
us.
lovely.
Yeah, she's local to us. She's over here at the
Really?
hospital, and for sure. Yeah, and I don't know, once every 3 months has a client who's at Caring House, and she'll come in and do her thing. So yeah, I mean,
Oh,
we've
that's
met her at
amazing.
little like get-togethers where, people in the industry just get together and chat, and she
Yeah.
and she comes by the house on a professional basis and all that. So
hmm
yeah, Lisa is local to us. Yeah.
I met her at a doula conference last year. So she's lovely. I
Hmm.
have the end of life deck too, and
Okay.
I need to get the dementia deck. I haven't bought that one yet. So
Oh yeah.
work on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
next.
Interesting.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to share your story and tell us all about Caring House. So last little moment here, just tell my listeners a little bit about where they can find Caring House, information on that, and anything else you want to get in before we're done.
So I'll do the easy stuff, then I'll throw it to Ann to close out.
Okay.
Caring House can be found at yourcaringhouse.org. Again, .org, Your Caring House. We're located in Torrance, which is a city in Los Angeles County, right next, not quite next to, but next to the beach cities. So near Hermosa Beach and Redondo Beach and all that. And that's who we are. Just did our 10-year anniversary. We have 6 rooms and just a lovely community service that we do. So that is Caring House on its upper level. And then Ann, throw it over to you.
You can also donate on our website.
Atta
That's true. You
girl.
can
Yay.
donate
I'll
there.
put direct links in the description for the donation page. So listeners, donate to them. Sorry, go ahead.
Please, we need your help. That would be wonderful. Yes, thank you. And Nikki, you're always welcome. You said you're out of Ohio, right? Come
I
on out.
am.
Next time you and the family are out in, California for any reason, please stop by, have
Yeah,
a cup of coffee with all of us.
I would absolutely
You
love
know.
that.
Mhm.
All right. Another huge shout out and thank you to David and Ann for coming on to tell all about their amazing space. I mean, seriously, guys, can you, I was glowing after that conversation. I'm like, if I had all the money in the world, if I was a rich individual, I would buy a house and staff it and have a place just like that. And yes, I'm sure I could with a whole lot of work. We'll see. I don't know. Anyway, thank you again, David and Ann, for coming on the show. If you have a story you would like to share on my podcast, you can reach out to me at nikkithedeathdoula.com/podcast. There's a button right at the top of the page where you can submit to be on the show if you have a story you'd like to share with my listeners. So please feel free to reach out there. I've got more interviews coming up with some great people. And if you really like the show, quickest, easiest thing you can do, promise it doesn't cost a dime. It'll take you a minute tops. Leave me a rating and a review. If you're on Apple Podcasts, write a couple sentences as to why you enjoy this show. That helps boost me up in the algorithm so more people can find me so I can help more people. If you want to support me further, again, you can go to patreon.com/nikkithedeathdoula and support me there. And you might get a nice little shout out on the show. You get some great bonus content as well. And lastly, don't forget to join the waitlist for my Good Grief Society grief community. I'm hoping to have more information coming out. I'm trying to see what kind of interest I get in this. And yeah, I'm very excited for this community. So if you want to check that out, you can find any and all information about that or any of my upcoming events, anything about me at nikkithedeathdoula.com. I look forward to reaching back out to you guys next week. I hope you have an amazing week. But remember, as always, Your grief is yours, your feelings are valid, and grief doesn't always have to suck. Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula is produced by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC in Columbus, Ohio. Nikki the Death Doula LLC is for consulting, education, emotional support, and guidance, and is no way considered a funeral establishment or licensed mental health establishment. Scripts, editing, sound design, literally everything with this podcast is done solely by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC, with the exception of the music. The music is Cheery Monday by Kevin MacLeod. Licensing information can be found at filmmusic.io.